Breaking news in the case against Donald Trump. A brand new court filing from the former president's lawyers just hit the docket. In it, the Trump legal team asks to keep in place a stop on the Justice Department investigation of those documents seized from an FBI search warrant served at Mar-a-Lago. The Trump lawyers call the DOJ probe, quote, misguided. And they argue the Justice Department hasn't proven that any of those documents taken from his Mar-a-Lago home are indeed classified. CNN's Evan Perez has more on this new response. Former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams is also with us. This filing just made with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. What's the big headline?
Well, the headline here, John, is that the former president is arguing that keeping this order from a lower court judge that prevents the Justice Department from continuing to investigate these documents, particularly the 100 or so classified documents that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. He's saying that keeping that stay in process, that prohibition against the government, is a sensible preliminary step toward restoring order from chaos. He's saying that the government should not be allowed to investigate these documents while the special master process is ongoing. And then he comes with this argument, which is that the government has not proven that the documents in question are actually classified. He says that the government is assuming, without either side presenting proof, that these documents are classified. That's from the filing. And of course, the irony here being that the former president has not actually even claimed that he declassified these documents, at least not in court. He said this on his social media platform. He said it in TV interviews, but he's not actually said this in court. But right now, the ambiguity of this, he's saying, is the government's fault, essentially, because they haven't actually proven that the documents are classified.
Haven't actually proven in the view of the Trump lawyers, Elliot Williams. We saw the photo released by the FBI in a previous court filing that showed the stamps on so many of those documents.
The documents are clearly stamped, and there's a really good chance that if they were declassified at the point at which Donald Trump had them in his possession, his own government, his own Justice Department was the entity, or FBI or whomever else, that classified these documents, number one. Number two, it simply does not matter for the various statutes that the Justice Department's looking into here whether these documents are classified or not. And people should burn that into their heads, John, that if we're talking about obstruction of justice or mishandling defense information or mutilating or removing documents, which are the three crimes that we at least know for now the Justice Department is looking into, it doesn't matter whether they're declassified or not. So I think it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors.
Not to mention, real quick, one of the possible crimes that the Justice Department is investigating is whether Donald Trump disobeyed a subpoena, right? He got a subpoena in May for him to turn over documents that are marked as classified. According to the FBI, by the fact that they got these documents when they went there in August, he disobeyed that subpoena. That is not answered in these documents.
Right. I was looking quickly through this, and not a lawyer, but they say they're trying to make a distinction between presidential records and personal records, saying Donald Trump has every right to take personal records with him. This document seems to ignore the months and months and months of negotiations where Trump's lawyers conceded and back and forth with the government that there was a legitimate dispute over what should be returned.
And moreover, a lot of those, pretty much anything that's not a personal record, a purely personal record, set aside this classification argument, they are government records that by law would belong in the custody of the National Archives and Records Administration. I think we're getting bogged down in this classified versus declassified versus SCI versus all that sort of mumbo jumbo acronyms. The simple fact is they belong to the government by law. And when you walk out of the government, the law says they have to belong there, even if you're a former president.
Right, stay with us, because this is complicated, and jump in if I say anything that's not entirely correct according to the law. But this brief filed with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the Justice Department appealing a federal judge in Florida's decision to stop the process. As this appeal goes forward, that Florida judge did name a special master to look through an independent party, to look through the masters. Just a while from now, about 2 hours from now, Trump lawyers in the Justice Department will meet inside a New York courtroom with that special master, Judge Raymond Dearie. Today, that judge and the lawyers are supposed to plot a roadmap on how to proceed. Again, that appeal is pending, but until you hear from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, the special master has this case. Last night, another Trump legal filing put on the record and in writing the stakes facing the former president. His lawyers say they're hesitant in a legal filing to back up Trump's claim, his public claim, that he declassified boxes of the material. Their reason, that might be a possible defense they would use should the Justice Department indict the former president. CNN's Kara Scannell is outside the courtroom in New York where this will play out. Kara, what do we expect?
Well, John, as you say, the special master in this case, Judge Raymond Dearie, is holding the first public hearing over this matter. And on the agenda is how they are going to go through 11,000 documents by the November 30th deadline set by the judge in Florida. Now, Judge Dearie was appointed to the bench by Ronald Reagan. He's been serving for more than 35 years, and he has a very well-regarded reputation amongst the public defenders, amongst federal prosecutors I've spoken to. In fact, the atrium in the courthouse behind me is named after the judge, Judge Raymond Dearie. That's the kind of respect that he has among this community. So he's setting the table today saying, okay, let's figure out the agenda, how we're going to go through this. He was also Trump's pick for special master that the Justice Department did not object to, but the Trump team is already finding some issues with some of the ideas that he's put forward. The Judge Raymond Dearie saying we should go through this categorizing these documents. What is personal? What is presidential? What is privileged by October 7th? Trump's team saying we might want to push back these deadlines and have more time. Now, in addition, this issue of classification, Judge Dearie, the special master, hitting that right on the head, saying he wants specific information from the Trump team about declassification. Now, Trump's lawyers saying in their filing last night that this is premature, that they, in fact, don't want to say anything about it because it could go to a possible defense if there is an indictment down the road. So we expect these issues to come to a head in the hearing. Now, the Department of Justice in their filing pushing for a quick move on this, saying they want to go through 500 pages a day, and they're hoping to have weekly review sessions with the judge to try to keep this on track. John?
Kara Scannell outside the courtroom in New York. Kara, thanks. Keep us posted as that things develop later today. Let's come back to the table with Evan Perez and Elliot Williams. Elliot, from a lawyer perspective first, just explain to the viewer who might not be following this on an hourly basis like we do, that you have an appeal to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, but this is essentially, until that is decided, full speed ahead before Judge Dearie.
Right. The 11th Circuit, where I was a law clerk many years ago, can step in and put the whole proceedings, the entire proceedings on hold and say, you know what, we've got this now. Please don't move forward. Until that point, you know, this is with the court that's hearing it. And I think Judge Dearie is proceeding as well he should, proceeding as if nothing's been put on hold yet.
And as that plays out, again, I want to read, Kara just mentioned this, Trump publicly has said he declassified these documents. His lawyers have never argued, including in this latest court filing, they have never argued in an official legal document where they are bound by oath that he declassified the documents. Judge Dearie says, prove it. Prove it. It's a key issue in this case. Please show me the evidence. As I review these documents, prove to me that I should defer to Donald Trump and say he deferred these. Trump's legal team says the draft plan requires the plaintiff to disclose specific information regarding declassification to the court and to the government. The special master process will force the plaintiff to fully and specifically disclose a defense to the merits of any subsequent indictment without such a requirement being in the district court order. The Trump team essentially saying no. Now what happens?
Right. They want the ambiguity of this, ambiguity, by the way, which they alone are creating, right? Because the government isn't even saying necessarily that, you know, they're arguing that these are documents that are marked as classified and that is the violation they're investigating. So the former president is trying to have it both ways. He's trying to say, look, we're not going to say whether these are classified or not because that might be our defense at a later point if he gets indicted. But at the same time, they want this the special master to set aside these documents and to essentially rule what is personal and what isn't.
And to be more direct, if in fact they're not declassified and they put that in a court filing that they were, that's lying to the court. Like you even use the words under oath, John. Not even filing it to the court, making that statement to a federal officer would itself be a crime. And so they have to be maybe they're declassified, I don't know. But all signs seem to suggest that they're not. And
another Trump lawyer in a previous assertion to the Justice Department, another Trump lawyer had written in a letter that all the classified materials had been returned.
Right.
Then you saw in the search warrant that according to the government and according to your eyes, those photographs, they had not. So they're sort of in a box here.
They cannot legally write in a court filing that these documents are declassified because there's even more trouble than they already might be in if they go there.